Mingalaba Sita Murujaye What the Buddha taught Pokis Gani Alamu Biami Jojo Library Dinimar Ashiga Chp-6 Aneta Ajaye Asset Part 3 Go Sabi Pepia be my paper Those who want to find ourselves in Buddhism argue as follows. It is true that the Buddha analyzed being into matter, sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, and says that none of these things is self. But he does not say that there is no self at all in man or anywhere else, apart from these aggregates. This position is untenable for two reasons. One is that, according to the Buddha's teaching, a being is composed only of these five aggregates and nothing more. Nowhere has he said that there was anything more than these five aggregates in a being. Those who want to find self in Buddhism argue as follows. Buddha Warama Atago Shapui Lo Genelu Twishi Lo Genedudega Oba Sinjeri Billy Shijai. It is true that the Buddhas analyzed being into matter, sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, and say that none of these things as is self. How did Buddha Warama Buddha Tatawa Yodi Vedanari, Dinyari, Tinkarari, Vinyanari, Subima, Kanangava, Piquetan Sepia, don't that omore. Eri Kanangava, Nga, Adamo Holo, Nusopia Hogera Mameli, no? But he does not say that there is no self at all in man or anywhere apart from these aggregates. Doro leve, di kanangava asuma loewe, lude lagong, a chani yard lagong, at a mashi who made no mamu, so we must singy tejavian. The kanangava at a machida lumeso of ya pura way. Maybe kanangava a bima, the chama she shima, a jam mess of ya piogram hold out. Hello, Pioja Luris. This position is untenable for two reasons. One is that, according to the Buddha's teaching, a being is composed only of these five aggregates and nothing more. Now here has he said that there was nothing more than these five aggregates in a being. So, Miasopia Babiola Zology. Midi Nia, Midi Karim, so Kanangava happy. Bumia, she did it, Miasopia Benama Mohoge. Okay, second reason now. The second reason is that the Buddha denied categorically in unequivocal terms, in more than one place, the existence of Atman, soul, self, or ego within man or without, or anywhere else in the universe. Let us take some example. In the Dhammapada, there are three verses extremely important and essential in the Buddha's teaching. They are number 5, 6, and 7 of chapter 20, or verses 277, 278, and 279. The first two verses says, all conditioned things are impermanent, sabbe sankhara anicca, and all conditioned things are dukkha, sabbe sankhara dukkha. Okay, okay, but tomorrow reading are Kanangava, she did a chapu bama, she was a mess of your hog. A dealing hog. Dudia reason the Buddha denied categorically in an equivocal terms in more than one place the existence of Atman, soul, or self, or ego within man or without, or anywhere else in the universe. So a chain bao mya so near toro mya yes of Yaba Biolator. Such a twin she Lu equal twin hypesi, Pimba hypesi, me di near mamasu, nga ata, siwa to the machine jango. Didi jaja pepeta, she lily bioge. Let us take some example. In the Dhammapada solution, there are three birds extremely important and essential in the Buddhist teaching. So, Ama Gatha Dobo Barbo, Dhammapada Gatha Horao. Dhammapada Rema Gatha, Lunguma, Yiji, the Dobo Bara, Duyali made the Dhammapada Rema. Erima solution, Erigata Beniama Duyale, the Dhammapada, I can't say my she among our chokon. Ma tuyare domo gata a pai nea conversation conversaku sari ma tuyare. But ma by my baby all condition things are impermanent. That be thing cara and nazare. Abalezo a jound de yaro bubi at all. Catingo no miego. And not that be thing cara dokare, all condition things are dokar. A jound de yaro she can be my beauty at the Catingo nori, a joya alo nori, see it. And the top bar say that the other Babylon is all Dhammas are without self. Be the Yamasure, Adama Bow, Adam Hope, Adam Sheep. That be Dhamma another. See, Potomaja, that be Tinkara, Anesa, that be Tinkara Doka. Tinkara Lubura, no? But the other way out of that be Dhamma, Piedra, that be Dhamma, and that does we might be alright. Tali the Tazia corn, no? Here, it should be carefully observed that in the first two verses, the word Sankara condition thing is used, but in its place, in the top verse, the word Dhamma is used. Why didn't the top verse use the word Sankara condition thing as the previous two verses? And why did it use the term Dhamma instead? Here lies the crux of the whole matter. Okay, can I be alright? Now, she had a bike at Tinkara Lutone. To the other way out, sorry, now some the Kuyama, Dhamma Lutone. Palu, she had a pile where Tinkara Lumatomene, Dhamma Lupiami Tone the lady. The Yaga, Aloe, that's I need a jow yawe. Piedana the Kulo, a diga, jar, a jazo may not be Piedana the Kulo, a diga, jazamadawe. Okay, the term Sankara denotes the five aggregates, all conditions, interdependent, related things and states, both physical and mental. If the top verse said all Sankara conditioned things are without self, then one might think that although conditioned things are without self, yeah, there may be the self outside conditioned thing, outside the five aggregate. It is in order to avoid misunderstanding that the term Dhamma is used in the top bar. The term Dhamma is much wider than Sankara. There is no term in Buddhist terminology wider than Dhamma. It includes not only the conditioned things and state, but also the non-conditions, the absolute Nibbana. There is nothing in the universe or outside, good or bad, conditions or non-conditions, relative or absolute, which does not include this term. Therefore, it is quite clear that, according to this statement, all Dhammas are without self. There is no self, no Atma, not only in the five aggregate, but nowhere else too, outside them or apart from them. So ဒီနေရာမှာသင်္ခါရဆိုတဲ့ term ပေါ့နော် the term sankhara သင်္ခါရဆိုတဲ့ term ကဘာဖြစ်တာလဲဆိုတော့ the five aggregate all conditions interdependent related state ဘုဖြစ်စေကြတယ်မယ်အဲ့ဒီသင်္ခါရဆိုတဲ့ term ခန္ဓာ၅ပါးကိုဆိုလို့ရတယ်ရုပ်နဲ့နှစ်ပါးလုံးနဲ့တက်ဆိုင်တဲ့အကြောင်းတရားတွေပြုပြင်စီရင်အပ်တဲ့သဘောတရားတွေတစ်ခုနဲ့တစ်ခုအညမညသဘောတွေမိခိုဆက်ဆက်နေတဲ့သဘောတွေခက်သိမ်းကုန်တော့အကြောင်းအချင်းရာတို့ဟာသင်္ခါရမှာအကျုံးဝင်တယ် all sankhara are without self if the thought about self all sankhara without self then one might think that all the conditioned things are without self. Yeah, there may be the self outside conditioned thing, outside the fire aggregates. So, ပထမမှာတပ်ပိသင်္ခါရအနိစ္စတပ်ပိသင်္ခါရဒုက္ခပြောသလိုပဲတပ်ပိသင်္ခါရအနတ္တာဆိုတဲ့စကားလုံးကပြောခဲ့မယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အဲ့လိုဆိုလို့ရှိရင်လူတွေကဘယ်လိုတွေးနိုင်လဲဆိုတော့ပြုပြင်စီရင်အပ်တဲ့အရာဟူသည်များကအတ္တမရှိကုန်မဟုတ်ကုန်တော့လဲခန္ဓာ၅ပါးနဲ့လွဲလို့တခြားအပြင်မှာပြုပြင်စီရင်ကင်းတဲ့အရာတွေမှာအတ္တရှိနိုင်တယ်ဟုတ်နိုင်တယ်ဆိုပြီးမှအတိပ္ပယ်ကောက်ယူနိုင်တယ်အဲဒီလိုမျိုးအတိပ္ပယ်ကောက်ယူခြင်းမလွဲစေရန်အတွက်ဒီဟာကိုသုံးခဲ့တာ It is in order to avoid misunderstanding that the ten dharma is used in the thapa ဒါကြောင့်မလို့တတိယ verse မှာတတိယစာပိုင်းမှာအကြောင်းရင်းမှာဗာပြောလဲဆိုတပ်ပိဓမ္မာအနတ္တာလို့ပြောခဲ့တာသင်္ခါရလို့မပြောခဲ့ဘူးဘာလို့လဲဆိုတော့အပြင်ကောအတွင်းကောအကုန်လုံးကအနတ္တာဆိုတာကိုပေါ်လွင်စေခြင်းလို့ Okay ထပ်ပြီးရှင်းရအောင် The ten dharma is much wider than sankhara သင်္ခါရထက်ပိုပြီးမှကိုကျေပြန့်တဲ့ဓမ္မဆိုတဲ့တရားဓမ္မဆိုတဲ့ဝါဟာရThere is no term in Buddhist terminology wider than Dhamma. ဘုရားဘာသာရဲ့ဝေါ်ဟာရမှာဓမ္မထက်ပိုပြီးမှကျေပြန့်တဲ့ဝေါ်ဟာရတော့မရှိတော့ဘူး It will include not only the conditioned things and state, but also non-conditions, the absolute nirvana. So အဲ့ဒီမှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဓမ္မဆိုတဲ့အဓိပ္ပာယ်မှာဆိုပြုပြင်စီရင်အပ်တဲ့အခြေအနေအကြောင်းတရားတွေသင်္ခါရသဘောတရားတွေအားလုံးပါဝင်ယုံနေမကရဘူးပြုပြင်စီရင်လို့မရတဲ့လုံးဝ absolute ဖြစ်နေပါရဲ့ဆိုတော့အကျွင်းမဲ့ပဂတိဖြစ်နေပါရဲ့ဆိုတော့နိဗ္ဗာန်ဒီပဲလျင်မဲ့အဲ့ဒီဓမ္မဆိုတဲ့စကားလုံးအောက်မှာအကျုံးဝင်တယ်ဆိုတော့ပူချေပြန့်တဲ့သဘော There is nothing in the universe of outside good or bad condition or non-condition related or absolute which is not included in this term. စัจ java လာအတွင်းပြင်နှစ်ခုစလုံးမှာအကောင်ဆိုးဟူသည်မြအကြောင်းတရားပြုပြင်စီရင်အပ်ကုန်တယ်မအပ်ကုန်တယ်စသည်အဖြစ်အားလုံးဗဂတိသဘောတွေအားလုံးအညမညသဘောတွေအားလုံးမခွဲခြားဘဲနဲ့ရှိတဲ့မြအရာခက်သေးနေအားလုံးကဓမ္မဆိုတဲ့စကားလုံးမှာအကျုံးမဝင်ဘူးဆိုတာမရှိဘူးအကုန်လုံးကဓမ္မဆိုတဲ့အောက်မှာအကျုံးဝင်တယ်ဒါကြောင့်မလို့တပ်ပိဓမ္မာအနတ္တာလို့ဆိုတဲ့အတွက်ခန္ဓာ၅ပါးမှာဒါငါအတ္တမဟုတ်တာမဟုတ်ဘူးအဲ့ဒီရဲ့အပြင်ပအားလုံးသိကြမှာတွေဟောအကုန်လုံးဘယ်နေရာမှာဆိုငါအတ္တမဟုတ်ဘူးဆိုတာသိတာထင်ရှားနိုင်ပါပြီ This means according to the Theravada teachings that there is no self either in the individual, Puggala, or in dhammas. The Mahayana Buddhist philosophy maintains exactly the same position without the slightest difference. In this point, putting emphasis on Dhamma Nirama as well as on Puggala Nirama. In the Alakadumabha Sutta of the Majjhima Nikaya, addressing his disciple, the Buddha said, O Bhikkhu, accept a soul theory, attavada, in the existence of which there would not arise grief, lamentation, suffering, distress, and tribulations. But do you see, O Bhikkhu, such a soul theory in the existence of which there would not arise grief, limitation, suffering, distress, and tribulations? Certainly not, sir. Good, O Bhikkhu. I'm too, O Bhikkhu. Do not see a soul theory in the existence of which there would not arise grief, limitation, suffering, distress, and tribulation. According to the Theravada teaching, this means that there is no self either in the individual, Pogala, or Dhamma. Theravada aloya ro Pogo the Udia, Pogala de Mao, Dhamma, Deyama, Pogo Mao, Deyama, or Atazura Mishivu. To do where the Mahana Buddhist philosophy maintains exactly the same. Mahana Abhidhamma Male, a Tudube. Turumale, Elowe, Pogo Male, Atamishu, Dhamma Male, Atamishu, Dhamma Anatman, Pogala Anatman. Yara Yira Naira Mendia Yira. Oh, you know. And in the Alagadu Mabato, Alagadu Mabato Dhamma, the Mijimaneke, Alagadu Mabato Dhamma. Addressing his disciples, the Buddha said, Misobia Yehanu Blue Pioles, O Bekura Yehanu or accept the soul theory, Adawara, in the acceptance of which there would not arise great limitations, suffering, distress, and tribulations. Yanore, Adawara will sway you do Pu sway jin, Mu jui jin, Go sing ye, 16 ye jin, Pienwa Pimanjin of Mapinai mu, To Adawara will sway you, dinner board. But do not live. Do you see me Twibulare or Bekure? Such a soul theory in the existence of which there would not arise great limitations, suffering, distress, and tribulation. Do not live at Dawara will sway you Tabiro. Pu swing or Jin is singing Jin, go sing 16 years, the Pienwa or Piman singing Jenny. Mapina in it. I'm your Minutwibulare. Certainly not long do out him. Yanny up Yapi. Yan who a gummy. Elu Adawara will sway you to dread. Puswitching or dredging, go sing, 16 and Pina singing to Mapina in it. To me, I let a common dribble. Eluara Mula, I am dribble, let me me. If there had been any soul theory which the Buddha has accepted, he would certainly have explained it here, because he asked the bhikkhu to accept that soul theory which did not produce suffering. But in the Buddha's view, there is no such soul theory, and any soul theory, whatever it may be, however subtle the sublime, is forked and imaginary, creating all kinds of problems, producing in it train great limitations, suffering, distress, tribulations, and troubles. So Adawara the Kugu or something Adawara the Kugu Bodaga the Hilura Lekan came as to it. Diniamadu Piolo Yara Mola, Shishin Biogelo Yara. To Lemakalum Biogera. Balules or here Boda Yehani Biore, be Mansi aging or Mapina no. At that, Wara Mew Shilo Shin, do Lakane, Pure a day, Mona. Do not live, Elo at that Wara Mew Mashivu, be a man seeing Dokari may out see it, at that Wara Mew Mashivu, so that means of your DB. Bello at that Wara Mew Masu, no? Take Umare, like Nane the Ludo. Take away the muy the lulu, Nunian the lulu, Shiro, Lebe Mara. The man say agency never looked higher, imaginary, no? Eri, I'm a bit than a museum pandide, Eri Ariane. The firm mechanism, the firm mechanism, a Juliaga Magona, Mola. Pandide, Buswejin, Mujin, Gusin, Sixin, Pino Bimani, Sashi, Senior Dokari, where President. Yes, of ya, come on, dear. Continuing, Sabiro, the discourse, the Buddha said in the same sutta, I don't know, no means of ya, Sabima, pure, she edited a little palaya. Oh, Baiku, when neither self nor anything pertaining to self can truly and really be found, this speculative view, the universe is that Atman, so I shall be that after that, permanent, abiding, everlasting, and changing, and I shall exist as such for eternity. It is not wholly and completely foolish. Here the Buddha explicitly states that an Atman or soul or self is nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found in reality. It is foolish to believe that there is such a thing. ဟုတ်ပြီအဲ့တော့မှပဲမြတ်စွာဘုရားပါဆက်ပြောလဲဆိုတော့ယဟန်တို့တဲ့ကိုခန္ဓာကိုမှ၎င်းကိုအတ္တပိုင်ဥစ္စာကို၎င်းပေါ့နော်အမှန်အဖြစ်အခိုင်အမာရှာဖွေလို့မရခဲ့လို့ရှိရင်အဲ့ဒီငါဆိုတဲ့ဟာကြီးကလောကပဲအဲ့ဒါကြီးကစัจ java လာကြီးပဲအဲ့ဒါဒီပင်လင်အတ္တပဲတမလွန်ဘဝမှာအဲ့ဒီငါပဲဖြစ်မယ်မြဲမယ်ခိုင်ခန့်မယ်ဖောက်ပြန်မယ်ဆိုတဲ့သဘောမျိုးမရှိတော့ဘူးမရှိတော့ဖောက်ပြန်ခြင်းတွေမရှိတော့ဘဲနဲ့အိုးအချိန်တိုင်းတာမရှိလုံးဝ infinity eternal ဖြစ်နေတဲ့မျိုးအဲ့လိုမျိုးဆွဲယူမှုအဲ့လိုမျိုးယုံကြည်မှုကမိုက်မဲခြင်းပဲပညာဉာဏ်ကင်းခြင်းပဲမဟုတ်ဘူးလားတဲ့ဆိုပါဗျာအတ္တဆိုတာငါဆိုတာကအတ္တပဲပေါ့နော်ခန္ဓာကိုယ်ကလည်းအတ္တပဲဒီကိုယ်ကလည်းအတ္တပိုင်တဲ့ဥစ္စာစသည်အဖြစ်ပေါ့လုပ်ပြီးမှစัจ java လာဒီကလည်းအတ္တငါကလည်းအတ္တပဲတကယ်လို့ငါကတည်သွားလို့ရှိရင်လည်းဒီဟာပဲဆက်ပြီးမှဖြစ်နေအောင်မှာပဲမြဲနေအောင်မှာပဲဖောက်ပြန်ခြင်းတွေမရှိဘူးဖြစ်နေအောင်မှာပဲလုံးဝအဆုံးအစမရှိ infinity အမြဲတမ်းမြဲနေတဲ့ eternal ကြီးဖြစ်နေအောင်မှာပဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အဲ့လိုအတွေးမျိုးကဘယ်လောက်များမိုက်တဲ့အတွေးလဲဘယ်လောက်များပညာနည်းလိုက်လဲဒီဒေသနာမှာမြတ်စွာဘုရားငါတို့ကိုတို့အတ္တတို့အမှန်အားဖြင့်ဘယ်နေရာမှရှာဖွေမရနိုင်ကြဘူးငါကိုအတ္တဆိုတာရှိတယ်လို့ယုံကြည်ခြင်းနေပင်လေလွန်စွာမိုက်မဲခြင်းဆိုတာဖြစ်တဲ့ကြောင်းမြတ်စွာဘုရားအတိအကျပြောခဲ့ Those who see themselves in the Buddha's teaching quote a few examples which they first translate wrongly and then misinterpreted. One of them is the well-known line Atta hi atano nato from the Dhammapada, which is translated as self is the love or self, and then interpreted to mean that the big self is the law or the small self. First of all, this translation is incorrect. Atta here does not mean self in the sense of soul. In Pali word atta is generally used as the reflective or indefinite pronoun, except in a few cases where it specifically and philosophically refer to the soul theory, as we have seen above. But in general usage, in the Dhammapada, where this line occurs and in many other places, it is used as reflective or indefinite pronoun meaning myself, yourself, himself, one, oneself, etc. those who see self in the Buddhist teaching quote a few examples which they first translate wrongly and misinterpreted. So Buddha Dedana Roma Atta or Laisha Puide Luria, Pali Horea, Kauno Chechu, you be my Bioja Yanide. I look Biora Katu to Rabamalo, a Maha Yun Para Biamima. Now a day ago, Mama Union Kaujujar. Para Bianale, a Ma, a day ago, Ma. Other lowly she did him. The Mabra Gave. No, the Mabra can send it. A medley, Tamamo Gata Nematia Chose, no, Arazu Bull, vast 160 Malari. A Golu Jawu, Myanmar, Sui. Atta he at the no na told of money. Mimi Gora go where I will Pamari to Biodali, no? Lurai Jawu. Area who Parabia and Eluria, Blue to Lue Parabia, meet to Lue David Kaujale. Edipogo, Gurali and Gue, Panishin Piedelo, Parabia and Ekama, to Rablo letter. Atta a Giga, Atta a Nelia, Shin the King Piede, so we ma, David Piana. Atta a G Dali, Atta Rally, Atta I Panishin Piede, so let me over. Who she might be okay. You sorry, she the Chuajaro, attack of G and pencil like the attack daily, so that you use a sheet, Hane Palmiro, the attack G yard even attack the daily pencil ship days. So David shall go to her. Da no one married, no? Attack the reserve here does not mean the self in the sense also. Atta the reserve Eri winning theory, soul theory, my pure self go pioniamo. I do me attack on you, Pioramo. The attack to the Palia, no? Pali Barama, she might be okay. Atta Wara and Pedabima, Shinshilin, Didi Japioso, the Kesa and Negani, Loebi Miarapia, Eddie Atta to the Zakalomo. Tambisa Kamalo Core, Tapisa Kamalo Core, Alu Nanza Nine, Dona Miarapi, Adago, Alu Nanza Nine, Blue Donazo, my Genovo, myself, Genogo, Demo, you, Domo yourself, Dingo Demo, no? To go to, you know, herself, himself, and let me worry about Mimiko. Doesn't the to go to oneself, Alamio Pioja, you know. Almu name and TV you hold me attack on you, Pioramo. To Pioni, myself to yourself to Alamio Piojina, who yet attack on Piojina. That's true, I lose you, Jar. And next, the word not all does not mean Lord, but refuse, support, help, protection. Therefore, at the Lord not all really mean when is one's own refuge or when is one's own help or support. It has nothing to do with any metaphysical soul or self. It simply means that you have to rely on yourself and not on other. Not all a shin the Kim Hope. Okay, not in Yama, do it by that piano, do it, your mamma, the Piora, and then Amali, by the Lupiolia, one of the two a solo jayas. Do a Lupiano, Nada, Naya Gugwe, Yalu, Piana, Shidalo, the Chuajaro, Nadali, Naya, a shin the Kim Aero, Almu Piana, she, Gudalin, Gue, a shin the Kim Aero, Almu Piana, she does not have any man water. Not all a shin the Kim Biora Mobile. Not all Guguea, refugee, no? Guzara, Guzaya, Artaya, a Guni Pia, Social Pia to the Divea. The Jamro at the nona toso de Apaiga Mimi Dali, Mimi it a Guni, Domo Artaya, Gudalin Guguea. Gudalin Gue Artaya, who is the guy or David. The child bed, the child who so theory, the Atman theory, the Sariabian, Alamu philosophy didn't lie, showed me I'm hopeful. Kuku Akuame, a chadu mamikoya uso at David. The Chalu mamikone, Kuku Aku. Yeah, Yerana Doma, Kuwe, Hode, Kuwe, Padrole, then the Anne Lumia Hoda. Time Bane Doyle to Kuku Aku be my way, then the Anne Lumia Ukea. Sudawi my Yoda Mamona, then the Anne Lumia. And tell me one, at the he at the non not also the Nianis I do it, but don't yaman. Mimi Gora, Mimi Ataya. Mimi Gora, Mimi Mikoya, so Bima, Yami don't yaya. That's why Bobima, David she's a low. Bobima, motivation, Yazimelo Timar. Another example of the attempt to introduce the ideas of self into the Buddhist teaching is in the well-known word Atta Deeper Viharata, Atta Sarana, Arninya Sarana, which is taken off the concept of Mahaparinibbana Sutta. This phrase literally means dwell making yourself your island. Support. Making yourself your refuge, and not anyone else as your refuge. Those who wish to see yourself in Buddhism interpret the word Atta Deeper and Atta Sarana, taking self as a lamb, taking self as a refuge. We cannot understand the full meanings and significance of the advice of the Buddhas to Ananda unless we take into consideration the background and the context in which these words were spoken. Another example of the attempt to introduce the idea of self into the Buddhist teaching. မြတ်စွာဘုရားရဲ့တရားတော်တွေထဲမှာအတ္တနဲ့ပတ်သက်တဲ့အကြောင်းတွေသင်ပါတယ်ကွာလို့ပြောချင်တဲ့လူတွေကနောက်ထပ်ကြိုးစားတာတခုရှိသေးတယ်။နောက်သူတို့ကတခြားတစ်မျိုးနဲ့ပြောကြတာရှိတယ်။အဲ့ဒါဘာလဲဆိုတော့မဟာပရိနိဗ္ဗာန်သုံးပါလာတဲ့အတ္တဒီပါဝိဟာရထအတ္တတရဏအနိညာတရဏဆိုတဲ့အဲ့ဒီဇာပိုက်လေးပေါ့အဲ့ဒီပုတ်ကလေးပေါ့နော်။အဲ့ဒီဟာကိုliterally meanings ကအဲ့ဒါကိုဓာတ်ရိုက်ဘာသာပြန်မယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်စာတိုင်းနာဘာသာပြန်မယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တင်းကိုတင်တာတင်းကိုတိုင်းတာတင်းရဲ့ကျွန်းငယ်လေးတော့that means တင်းကိုတိုင်းတာတင်းအားထားပြုရand then တင်းကိုတာတင်းရဲ့မိခိုရပြုရနေကြကုန်တော့တခြားသူကိုမိခိုရမဖြစ်စေနဲ့ဆိုပြီးမြတ်စွာဘုရားပြိဋိနိဗ္ဗာန်ဆံဃန်ကြီးမှာပြောသွားတယ်Those who wish to see the self in the Buddhism, Buddha Varama Atta Vara Shiva Re Suraho, mean genetically blue interpret blue David Bianes. Atta Dipane, Atta Sarana Udwa, taking self as a lamb, taking self as a refuge of Matua people. Atta Dibao, go see me die appears, Atta Daranao. Self Atta Mikoya appear Atta Simira Pietava Atta Mikoya Pietava Elo David Gaujar. We cannot understand the full meanings and significance of the advice of the Buddha to Ananda. So the Hamjes of Ya she Ananda so Mara, pretty members so Mara. Dame Dory a David ne do it. The border power, people so Nale Manoel. Unless we take into the consideration the background and the context in which these words were spoken. So the could not be a go Jung and Lumue Atabi ma building, Gugura Miko to the Bauma Miko Nedovi. Pure is a glow background Jibulure. Backgrounds are Beijing Purale, Peroma Purale, Bari Purale. So the area story and background and do the Jimaya. Era Mandia, Piso, the Buddha was at the time staying at a village called Velua. It was just 3 months before his death, pre-Nibbana. At this time, he was 18 years old and was suffering from a very serious illness, almost dying. But he thought it was not proper for him to die without breaking it to his disciples who were near and dear to him. So with courage and determination, he bore all his pains, got the better of his illness and recovered. But his health was still poor. After his recovery, he was seated one day in the shade outside his residence. Ananda, the most devoted attendant of the Buddha, went to his beloved master, sat near him, and said, "Sir, I have looked after the head of the Blessed One. I have looked after him in his illness. But all the sight of the illness of the Blessed One, the horizon became dim to me, and my faculties were no longer clear. Yeah, there was one little consideration. I thought that the Blessed One would not pass away until he had left instruction to the order of the Sangha." Then the Buddha, full of compassion and human feeling, gently spoke to his devoted and beloved attendant. "Ananda, what does the order of the Sangha expect from me? I have taught the Dhamma true, without making any distinction as esoteric and esoteric. With regard to the truth, the Tathagata has nothing like the closed fist of a teacher. Surely, Ananda, if there is anyone who thinks that he will lead the Sangha and that the Sangha should depend on him, let him set down his instruction. But the Tathagata has no such idea. Why should he then leave instruction concerning the Sangha? I'm now old, Ananda, 80 years old. As a worn-out car has to be keep going by repairs. So it seemed to me the body of the Tathagata can only be kept going by repair. Therefore, Ananda, dare making yourself your island support, making yourself, not anyone else, your refuge, making the Dhamma your island, the Dhamma your refuge, nothing else your refuge." The Buddha was at the time staying at the village called Velua. မြတ်စွာဘုရားကဘေလူဝါဆိုတဲ့ရွာမှာစံတော်မူနေတဲ့ချိန်ဒီတရားတော်ကိုဟောကြားခြင်းဖြစ်တယ် We're just 3 months before his death, pre-Nibbana. ပရိနိဗ္ဗာန်မဆန်ခင်မတည်ဆုံးခင်3 လအလိုအချိန်ကပရိနိဗ္ဗာန်မပြုခင်3 လတော့3 လအလိုတော့အဲ့ချိန်မြတ်စွာဘုရားကအသက်80ရှိပြီမရဏန္တိကလို့ပြောတယ်လုံးဝတေလို့မျိုးပါပေါ့တေလို့မျိုးပါပြင်းစွာတော့နာမကျဲမှုဖြစ်နေမြတ်စွာဘုရားမရဏန္တိကဆိုရရောဟိုပါပေါ့နော်အင်မတန်ကပြင်းထန်တဲ့အသက်တေလောက်တဲ့ယောဂမျိုးဖြစ်နေ But he thought it was not proper for him to die without breaking it to his disciples who were near and dear to him ဒါမြတ်စွာဘုရားဘယ်လိုပြောလဲဆိုတော့ဘယ်လိုတွေးလဲဆိုတော့သူရဲ့တပည့်ကြီးငယ်တွေပေါ့ near and dear တပည့်တွေပေါ့နော်တပည့်ကြီးငယ်တွေအတိမပေးဘဲနဲ့ပရိနိဗ္ဗာန်ပြုလို့တော့မဖြစ်ဘူးဆိုပြီးမှတွေးမိတဲ့အတွက်သူယောဂဝေဒနာကို imitant 2 carat the tea, what he are in it, the can of movie. Any yoga in Piauar. After his recovery, to Gemma Rabi Nama, he was seated one day in the shade outside of his residence. So to get joining a being a year gleam, yes, of ya, they didn't do it. Gemma, you gone. Think you gone is around yoga or Piauar. Did you not new? Nalan Harbor, Juju did it. Alupini Regima, she aned as a yaller, she aned alum did it, yes of Yao, thou shalt Uji won't get beautiful beard, yes of ya attended with P.A. Lowe. No, and Bogo, she aned a yaller cover, yes of Yao do a shout, yes of Yare, Shimpiare. Shimpia Jama eat to a video, a mere you desire some showcase, Shimpiare. Shimpia Namajan, she's in Alley. Nimagono and the video, sound show the PR. Shimpia Namajan de change to the video. Even the Goma to video, you doing you seeing to Impia. Even the miming the video. Take a gong body, Yochina, or take a gong to a new and a pinning. I repeated to a video, the yard is singing and Imitago Matim Shavan and Mowar. She met the not appoints you, Bima, so much you judge it in Matavane. Yes, or Piaro, bring even Marcelo Babu, Duibiro, say good knitting care of my PR. Yochina, she met him a gone of Piano, go on beautiful social bar, imitate sewing mar, so in the Leo de Viro, say good long, Union and a penny. Diago am told her. Time the Viro Blumia P. Diales or Shimia, Tangabi, the Patiama, Mohori Venero, Madeira de Brady, San Lao de Ulu, the Viro, Eluli, Duibiro, was a good knitting. Yosopia, then the Buddha, full of compassion and human feeling, generally spoke to his devoted and villa attendant. Some years of Yale, two Gigi knew that Chicken, to low treated. Yano, she anano, even chicken, me no, can you not? Ludas and it. Chicken, Miss of ya. She anano, blue main, and an are. Yahan than Arura, and a piat and a pau mulinia. Are they are already a twin beam equivalent at each a whole heavy. They are the marine, but there be ma. Say as Archen Harris or Mishibama, a dream jam tau, Beruma Bogo and McQuaven, a dream at Hoga baby. Say as Archen is Rao, Balilu Pioles, Seria Muli. Say as Archen had him ship. Sorry, Dinia Mani, Asiria Muti, Dima Salomba Mani, Asiria Muli, Asiria Muti. And I did our warrior and the Gelu, the zone Diaga, Dangaru, Danga, a super one, Dangari Usome, Dangari, now Mikovini, Mayu, Tare solution, Dangari, Viroma, the zone Dia, Oara as a garden, Oara Diari, Yiswama. Piamaro, Naro, and music machine. Dangari. Now, Miko Winnie Yame, say good meal, you a genuine machine to a man, you're low. And then her. The Yamu, Dangaru, ye will be ma. Oh, are the hour. Oh, are the garden, Navalutani. I could attach she say she be Umila. Le Uji, le a soji. You be me my money as a look. Male, Rubakaya, the Yosin with me. You be seeing Benny Lura, the loud in the yard. The Yao Anana, go, Jung at the way. Ah, tab you be ma. Go, Miko Winnie get or the child will Miko Yama pissing. The Yago Dali, the Jung if you are tired. Miko or the Yago Dali, the go way up here. She need all တရားမှတပါတခြားကိုးကွယ်ရမရှိဘူးဆိုတာကိုလုံတွေးပြီးမှနေခဲ့တော့ဒီမှာမြတ်စွာဘုရားအေးချင်းလေးဟောကြားပြီးတာသိစိတ်ဝင်စားတယ်ပေါ့နော်မြတ်စွာဘုရားမဟုတ်လို့ရှိရင်ဆိုသိတယ်မလားတချို့အဖွဲ့အစည်းတွေတချို့ even တက်ငါအဖွဲ့အစည်းမှာတော့မှပဲမဟုတ်ရှိမှာပါကျောင်းတိုင်းတွေမှာရှိမှာပါပရိနိဗ္ဗာန်ဆယ်နေပြီတို့ဟုတ်တည်ဆုံးတယ်နီးပြန်တော်မူခံနီးဆိုစားရမျိုးချိန်ကာလတွေမှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ရှိမှာပါဟုတ်လားကိုယ်မိခိုပြီးနေရတယ်ဆိုတော့အတွေးမျိုးတွေးတဲ့လူတွေကြောင့်ဟာဘယ်လိုနေခဲ့ကြတော့ဘယ်လိုလုပ်ခဲ့ကြတော့ဘယ်လိုမဖြစ်စေနဲ့ဘာညာစားရရင် even ဒေတန်းစားတွေတော့ရေးကြရတာတချို့ဘာသာတရားတွေမှာရှိတာဘုရားကတော့အဲ့လိုမဟုတ်ဘူးယဟန်တွေသူ့ကိုမိခိုပြီးနေရမယ်ဆိုတဲ့အတွေးမျိုးတစ်ခါမှမတွေးခဲ့ဘူးအဲ့ကြတော့ယဟန်တွေကိုသူကဩဝါဒမှလည်းချွေးနေကြမလို့တော့ပါဘူးပြောချင်တာကတည်လို့ရှိရင်မင်းတို့မားတရားဘာတရားမှမရှိဘူးပါပေါ့ကိုတာအာကိုပြီးနေခဲ့ကြတော့တရားကိုတာအာကိုပြီးနေခဲ့ကြတော့ဒါပဲတခြားအဲ့ဒီကနေတခြားဘာမှကိုးကွယ်စရာမရှိဘူးWhat the Buddha wanted to convey to Ananda is quite clear. The latter were sad and depressed. He thought that they would all be lonely, helpless, without a refuge, without a leader after their great teacher's death. So the Buddhas gave him consolation, courage, and confidence, saying that they should depend on themselves and on the Dharma he taught, not on anyone else or know anything else. Here the question of a metaphysical Atman or self is quite beside the point. Further, the Buddha explained to Ananda how one could be one's own islands or refuge, how one could make the Dharma one's own islands or refuge. Through the cultivations of mindfulness or awareness of the body, sensations, mind and mind object, the full Satipatthana, there is no talk at all here about an Atman or self. Now what the Buddha wanted to convey to Ananda is quite clear. မြတ်စွာဘုရားအာနန္ဒာကိုနားလည်စေလိုတဲ့အကြောင်းကရှင်းရှင်းလင်းလင်းနော် The latter were sad and depressed. အာနန္ဒာစိတ်အားငယ်နေတယ်ဝမ်းနဲ့ပူဆွေးနေတယ် He thought that they would all be lonely, helpless, without a refuge, without a leader after their great teacher death. So သူကဘယ်လိုတွေးလဲဆိုတော့သူတို့တွေအားလုံးတော့တို့တွေတော့အထီးကျဲမှာပြီတို့တွေတော့အကူရကေရမဲ့ပါပြီတို့မှာကိုးကွယ်ရလည်းမရှိတော့ဘူးတို့မှာခေါင်းဆောင်လည်းမရှိတော့ဘူးဒီဆရာသမားတာမြတ်စွာဘုရားဆရာသမားတာပရိနိဗ္ဗာန်ပြုပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့တည်ပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့ငါတို့မှာကိုးကွယ်ရလည်းမရှိတော့ဘူးဆိုမြတ်စွာဘုရားနဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးမှသူတွေးပြီးမှပူပင်တယ် So the Buddha gave him consolation, courage and confidence. So မြတ်စွာဘုရားဒါနဲ့မိမိကိုအားကိုးဖို့ရာတရားတွေကိုခေါ်ခဲ့တယ်တရားတွေကိုအကာအကွယ်ပြုပြီးမှဘယ်လိုမှဘယ်လိုအရာမှမကိုးကွယ်နဲ့ဆိုပြီးမှပြောပြမြတ်စွာဘုရားရှေ့ရတဲ့နောက် consolation စိတ်သက်သာရစေခဲ့တယ်ယုံကြည်မှုရှိစေခဲ့တယ် courage တတိတွေရှိစေခဲ့တယ်မြတ်စွာဘုရားကပြောတယ်ကိုတာအားကိုတရားတော်တာအားကို So ဒီနေရာမှာ here the questions of metaphysical Atman or self is quite beside the point ဒီနေရာမှာအတ္တအကြောင်းနေဒီ Atman ဆိုတဲ့အကြောင်းနေဘာမှမဆိုင်ဘူးဒီနေရာမှာဘာလည်းမပါဘူးအကျုံးလည်းမပါဘူး Further ဒါတွေမကရဘူး The Buddha explained to Ananda how one could be one's own islands or refuge, how one could make the Dharma one's own islands or refuge. So okay ကိုရဲ့ကျွန်းတစ်ဖွဲ့မိခိုပြီးနေကိုယ်အားထားပြီးနေဓမ္မကိုကျွန်းတစ်ဖွဲ့မိခိုပြီးနေဓမ္မကိုကိုယ်အားထားပြီးနေဆိုတာဘာလဲဘယ်လိုနေရမှာလဲဆိုတော့မြတ်စွာဘုရားအာနန္ဒာကိုပြောပြခဲ့တယ်ဘယ်လိုလဲဆိုတော့ through the cultivations of mindfulness or awareness of the body, sensation, mind and mind objects. The fourth satipatthana. Ko belo agubi niyama le, tayaro belo agubi niyama le suro. The deep attend taya leba o achikamiba. Kaya nubadana, vedana nubadana, sita nubadana, dhamma nubadana sure. The deep attend tayari go miko bima. Go jolo niyame, jolo miko bi niyame, go ya. Tayaro let who do. There's no thought at all here about an Atman or Sadinia Bamale at Daja. Bamale Atman Jau Balu. Bama Mabau. Another reference, off quoted, is used by those who trying to find Atman in the Buddha's teaching. The Buddha was once seated under a tree in the forest on the way to Uruvela from Benares. On that day, 30 friends, all of them young princes, went out on a picnic with their young wives into the same forest. One of the princes, who was unmarried, brought a prostitute with him, while the other were amusing dancer. She prolonged some objects of values and disappeared. In their search for her in the forest, they saw the Buddha seated under a tree and asked him whether he had seen a woman. He inquires what was the matter. When they explained, the Buddha asked them, "What do you think, young man? Which is better for you, to search after a woman or to search after yourself?" Here again, it is a simple and neutral question, and there is no justification for introducing far-fetched ideas or metaphysical arguments or self into the business. They answered that it was better for them to search after themselves. The Buddha then asked them to sit down and explain the Dharma to them. In the available account, in the original text of what he preached to them, not a word is mentioned about an Atman. So that is another reference not to Kushi. Of quotable, often quoted, Majakana to the Kugaria. Is used by those who trying to find Atman. At that to the dome in the Buddha's teaching, Mesavia Diarima, at that to the dome. Atman to the Shiba Resura, that they biachin and do they. Majakana Kugari Hali, she did. The Buddha was once seated under a tree in the forest on the way to Uruvela from Benares. The Kara Boraga Payanatibia Uruvela, Rutwara, land she did, dipping, do out here, dipping to be out my Mesavia, tiny. On that day, every name of it, 30 friends. Of them young princes, went out for a picnic with their young wives into the same forest. So today may marry now, not to reveal whether one of the princes, who was unmarried, brought a prostitute with him. To amuse me, prostitute or pieces are Matia to a caller. So, prostitute, Baloles or a machine is more Baloles, a busy cool dryer. Following load dryer, following load dryer, cool dryer, following loaded, then we see the area, following load to Piao dryer when the pieces are Maria. Cool, you Piao. So, in their search for her in the forest, they saw the Buddha seated under a tree and asked him whether he had seen a woman. So, there are a Piao Laisha, Miss of Pia, they began to be on my tiny out to me, were not any women, amused to me, gonna be repeated on my tree like that. Miss of Pia, he inquired, what was the matter? Not about your later. When they explain, မြတ်စွာဘုရားမေးတယ်သူတို့ဘာကြောင့်လဲဘာကြောင့်လိုက်ရှာနေတာလဲဘာလို့လဲဆိုတော့သူကပြောတယ်ဒီလိုပဲရှင်မြတ်ဒီလိုပဲခိုးသွားလို့ပြောလို့ပစ္စည်းတွေကိုအဲ့ဒါလိုက်ရှာနေတာပါမြတ်စွာဘုရားမေးတယ် what do you think မင်းဘယ်လိုထင်လဲရမ်းမန်းတဲ့လူလင်တို့ပေါ့ကောင်းလေးတွေပေါ့မင်းတို့ဘယ်လိုထင်လဲပေါ့ which is better for you ဘယ်ဟာပိုကောင်းမယ်လို့ထင်လဲတဲ့ to search after a woman or to search after yourself မင်းတို့ကိုထဲမှာရှာတာနဲ့ကိုရှာဖွေစူးစမ်းတာနဲ့အဲ့ဒီအမျိုးသမီးတယောက်ကိုလိုက်လံရှာဖွေနေတာဘယ်ဟာပိုကောင်းတယ်လို့မင်းတို့ထင်လဲမြတ်စွာဘုရားမေးတယ် Here again this is simple as a neutral question right ဒီမေးခွန်းကရိုးရိုးရှင်းပဲဘာမှထင်မပြောင်းပါဘူး There is no justification for introduction far-fetched idea or metaphysical argument or step into the business so အတ္တကြောင့်နေပါရီရှိဝေးအဘိဓမ္မာနဲ့ဆက်ဆိုင်တဲ့အတ္တကြောင့်နေဆွေးယူတွဲမှာမဟုတ်ဘူးလေမှာအဲ့ဒါအကြောင်းနေပြောမှာမဟုတ်ဘူးအဲ့ဒါနဲ့မဆိုင်ဘူး They answered that it was better for them to search after themselves ကိုမှရှာတာကောင်းတာပေါ့ကိုရှာတာကောင်းတာပေါ့လို့သူတို့ကလည်းပြန်ဖြေကြတယ် The Buddha asked them to sit down and explain the Dhamma to them အဲ့ဒီမြတ်စွာဘုရားသူတို့ထိုင်ခိုင်းတယ်အကြီးထိုင်ကြပါတရားလေးဟောမြတ်စွာဘုရားတရားရှိဟောပြတယ် In the available account in the original text of what he preached to them not a word is mentioned about an Atman မူလစာပေထဲမှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အဲ့ဒီဟောတဲ့တရားနဲ့ပတ်သက်တဲ့အကြောင်းကြည့်လို့ရှိရင်မူလစာပေထဲမှာပါတယ်အဲ့ဒါကိုကြည့်လို့ရှိရင်အတ္တနဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးပြောထားတာဘာတစ်ခုမှမပါဘူးအဲ့ဒီမှာဆက်ဖတ်လိုက်မယ် Much has been written on the subject of the Buddha silent when a certain Parivajaka wanderer named Visakutta asked him whether there is an Atman or not. The story as follows. Visakutta came to the Buddha and asked, Bhadava Gautama, is there an Atman? The Buddha is silent. Then Bhadava Gautama, is there no Atman? Again, the Buddha is silent. Visakutta gets it and goes away. Sorry. After the Parivajaka he had left, Ananda asked the Buddha why he did not answer Vijayagutta's question. The Buddha explained his position. Ananda, when asked by the Vijayagutta, the wanderer, is there a self? If I had answered there is a self, then Ananda, that would be siding with those recluse and Brahmins who hold the eternalist theory, Sasatawada. And Ananda, when asked the wanderer, is there no self? If I had answered there is no self, then that would be siding with those who recluse and Brahmins who hold the annihilationist theory, Uchedawada. Hey, Ananda, when asked by Vijayagutta, is there a self? If I had answered there is a self, would that be in accordance with my knowledge that all dhammas are without self? Surely not, sir. And again, Ananda, when asked by the wanderer, is there no self? If I had answered there is no self, then that would have been a greater confusion to the already confused Vijayagutta. For he would have thought, formerly indeed I have an Atman self, but now I haven't got one. It should now be quite clear why the Buddhas were silent, but it will be still clearer if we take into consideration the whole background and the way Buddha treated questions and questioner, which is altogether ignored by those who have discussed this problem. No? Much has been written on the subject of Buddha silence when a certain Parivajaka wanderer named Vijayagutta asked him whether there was an Atman or not. So Pretty Bazagabo, Parabai, no, Parabai, with a good as a resolution. Without God as a Parabai, yes of Yazi la me who she. El Migola Miro, yes of Ya, Loma Peter. At that never be my yes of Ya, Loma alone of Harama, Pura, Miss you. I was not going to miss of Ya, Balami, Shimpia, and Tashiba. I made a mess of ya, Bambio, 6 penny. Sabita, Bambio. So, Pia made it to her. Shimia, is there no atman? At a Mishula, Shimia. She will have a mirror Bambio, 6 penny. I know, oh, Parabaga, Bama, to mess of ya, my piano to the piano. Piano. The Parabian Robin was sharing an alarm. Shimia, why he Balumia Shimia, the Wizard Miko Shimia Mapira level. Mesomia Shannon out of the Biobia. And in the heart, when asked by Wizard Gota, the wanderer, is there a self? If I answer there is a self, then Ananda, that would be siding with those recluse and Brahmin who hold the eternalist theory. That's the water. Ananare, without Godaga, now, at that she the last red, Mikumu, Mire Kama. Ah, at that she de Lupi Lushi. That the Dawara to the Bawa said, she de Lulacanare, Elu Boguri, Bonari, Yahanin. Through Aluyadi Yahani Bonaribo, Eli the Manavia Manario, Tokaya Yauni. Was said she did, but was were set needed to them. You was what the Kunaku said be pinning the eternalist Beroma. A bit don't know tower she needed to the immune. To have your one. The young man my Peter at that she did last to the Migo. And not the music and is there no say at that Mishivula Lumiro? I'm a few. The yellow. There is no self to be my at that machine will be like Lucy. Oh, say that water, Bawari, Pietware, Bawada could be the Harlowa Pidwari, Pietwari, so it. Oh, say that water, yet, Lekan Harry, the Tamanapia Manari, but token I only made the young woman Peter. Not she did it again, Anna. One is by the Wizard, is there a self? At that she la made a comma. If I answer there is a self, at that she did look she like Lucy. Would that be in accordance with my knowledge that all Dhamma are without self? So that's the reason I Nyambina, I hot had the Ari, sending up the only more. I couldn't dictate the Ayajaro, cut they know they are Tamaruma, at that machine to the Titi Tamaro, and how she did a blue people. Of course, when I watch him, I have blue kaini. I think I'm a kaini. Hold out watching me, I am a kaini. I'm just a piat pure. And then, the Paravaga made it. Is there no step? At that Mashibula look pure. Ah, he hold it. At that Mashugua look pure like Lucy. Eddie Paravai, Eddie Wizagoda. Show 3 dollar me, and 2 dollar me. The woman does show me a quarry. Without go down, Nagoria in it to a time penny, and that she and Meshu. Nama Nangwaro Nama at that she get it. A Hujaro Meshiro Balazima to we be ma to Rapini. The Jamro, Netopia, my Pia. The ma. Again, and Jarabo, I near ma. But we might show dwelling me, compute dwelling me, so I'm a full note to her. She get again, so don't want the J. Bodaga, Yana Guelum be there now, ma. Miro Piedi Surao, Nene, they muire, Mina get a pietna diego, Shinley, Hopias in Noma. What I got that little showcase. She got a mare. Iana General Namle, Gino Yaka, General Namle, she be higher. Iana General to do with Gino Yaka, Dinama Duro or Time Bandy with Piare. She be she who builds the Gama, General people are Gilly and Jimmy, Yakutka, Piaco, Shimia. ပြောချင်တာအရှင်မြတ်ရှေ့ကပြောတော့တရားတွေနားလည်တယ်အခုတော့ပို့ပြီးမှရှုပ်သွားပြီဆိုပြီးမြတ်စွာဘုရားဟိုသူကပြောထားဖို့လည်းရှိတယ်ဒါကြောင့်မြတ်စွာဘုရားသူ့ထက်ပြီးမှပို့ပြီးမှမရှုပ်သွားစေချင်လို့ဘာလို့လဲဆိုဒါတွေကရှုပ်တဲ့သဘောတရားတွေမို့လို့လေနော်အစမြတ်စွာဘုရားသူ့တရားဟောတာလေးရှိတယ်ယဟန္တာဖြစ်ပြီးယဟန္တာပရိနိဗ္ဗာန်ဆိုင်ပြီးလို့ရှိရင်ဘာမှမဖြစ်တော့ဘူးဆိုတာဟာနဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးသူကလာမေးထားတာရှိတယ်မြတ်စွာဘုရားမြတ်စွာဘုရားဖြေလိုက်မှသူကပို့ပြီးမှနားမလဲတော့ဘာလို့ဘာမှဖြစ်တာလဲဘာလဲဆိုပြီးမှသူကနားမလဲတော့နားမလဲတဲ့ကကျတော့သူ့အတွက်ရှုပ်ထားပြီးကျင့်နေနေတဲ့တရားတွေသူမြတ်စွာဘုရားတရားတွေနာပြီးပြောနေတာတော့မှဘယ်ပြောလို့ပြောက်သွားမှမသိဘူးပေါ့အဲ့လိုမျိုးဖြစ်အဲ့လိုမျိုးမဖြစ်စေချင်လို့နော် it should now be quite clear why the Buddha was silent ဒါဆိုရင်တော့အခုတော့မြတ်စွာဘုရားဘာလို့စိတ်နေတယ်လဲဆိုတာသဘောပေါက်တော့ပါပဲအနေနဲ့အများတော့လေနော် but it will be stay clearer if we take into consideration the whole background and the way Buddha treated question and questioner which is altogether ignored by those who have discussed this problem တကယ်လို့ပို့ပြီးမှနားလည်နိုင်ဖို့ရန်အတွက်အဲ့ဒီပု္ပ္ပစာတွေပေါ်မှာ question တွေပေါ်မှာ၎င်းမေးခွန်းတွေပေါ်မှာ၎င်းမေးခွန်းမေးနေတဲ့သူတွေပေါ်မှာ၎င်းမြတ်စွာဘုရားရဲ့သဘောထားနဲ့အဲ့ဒီမေးမြန်းခြင်းရဲ့နောက်ခံအကြောင်းအရာတွေကိုထည့်သွင်းစဉ်းစားလို့ရှိရင်တော့ပို့ပြီးနားလည်လိမ့်မယ်ဗုဒ္ဓစိတ်နေတာပေါ့နော်ဗုဒ္ဓအဲ့လို Nobel Silence ကိုလုံးဝဘာမှတုံ့နေပါဘူးစိတ်နေတာကိုဆွေးနွေးတဲ့သူတွေကဖော်ပြပဲနောက်ခံအကြောင်းတွေကိုလုံးဝလစ်လျူရှုခဲ့ကြတယ်။အဲ့ဒါကိုမပြောကြအောင်။ So ဒီနေရာမှာခဏရက်ထားပါမယ်။နောက်ထပ် part 4မှာထပ်ပြီးမှတွေ့ကြပါမယ်။ဒီနေ့တော့အချိန်လည်းများသွားပြီဆိုတော့ဒီနေရာမှာခဏရက်ထားပါမယ်။စနေနေ့ကျရင်ထပ်ပြီးမှတွေ့ကြပါမယ်။ဒီခန်းကနည်းနည်းလေးတော့ရှိတယ်။နောက်ထပ်ဘယ်နှမျက်နှာလောက်ဖတ်ရအောင်ပါလဲဆိုတော့တစ်မျက်နှာနှစ်မျက်နှာသုံးမျက်နှာလေးမျက်နှာလောက်ဖတ်ရအောင်ပဲဖတ်ဖို့ဆိုတော့ပြီးပါပြီတရားကအားလုံးကိုကျေးဇူးတင်ပါတယ်နေကောင်းအောင်နေပါငြိမ်းချမ်းအောင်နေပါ peace